you.
Stuart, how are your kids doing?
Well, they say they're okay, but they both went to bed and they've kind of been napping ever.
Excuse me, I have to start that recording. So Haley, you have a link for the library update, and I'm not seeing the link in the chat yet, but you'll give that to us. And can you tell us what, oh, there it is. Creek updates, okay. And can you tell us, assuming they're still moving forward with repairs?
If they're still moving forward with repairs?
Yes.
Oh, as far as we know, and we've received communications, yes. Our office continues to hear from neighbors, you know, inside and outside of this group about how important the library is. So it's definitely a priority of ours in the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure to get this repaired. You know, it's a great hub in Cherry Creek and we would hate to lose it. So.
Okay, thank you. We will post those, of course, on our Cherry Creek North website, and I'm sure others in the steering committee will push those out to your RNOs as well. Thanks very much for that, Haley. Logan?
Thanks, good to see everybody. I think Haley hit on the biggest thing that is gonna be close to you guys is the DO8 that we're working on for Colfax. That's pretty exciting. We're getting close to filing an application on that. We've got the Montclair ADU thing, which is a little far away. Still getting survey responses for that. So if you know any Montclair, please, I can put the link in there, but please let us know. And the only thing that's close by, I think worth mentioning, is this week we found out the Church of 50 South Colorado was supposed to go to the Board of Adjustments, which would have led to the variance, which would have led to the permit and having it torn down. But CPD pulled it out of there because they don't have jurisdiction at the Board of Adjustments because it's a PUD. It's a whole thing. But essentially, we're waiting to hear back from CPD about what's going on with the ruling on that, because the developers there want to put a masonry wall along Colorado Boulevard before they start their development, and we would like them to tear that down as soon as possible because it is not a great use of land and it is empty and attracting trash and dangerous stuff. So when we have more information, we'll let you know about that, but waiting to hear back from them about what the current status is.
Okay, thank you very much. We know that all the folks running for office are all very busy right now. And so it'll be I guess an impactful meeting next month. We will have new leadership coming on board. So with that, I think I want to, by the way, I don't know if, I think Richard is here. I know that Nick and Jeremy, as I announced, are not going to be able to make it this evening. So I don't know, Richard, if you want to provide any updates on the bid.
Yeah, kind of what we have going on in the bid, I'd be happy to. Real focus this last month on public safety. A lot of meetings with police. We did a coffee with the cops that was attended by some neighborhood folks along with some businesses. The police have enrolled a business watch program, which is similar to neighborhood watch. We launched that in Cherry Creek North and had one meeting, and we're gonna have monthly business watch meetings now just to get more folks through that program and engaged in the public safety side of things. Continuing to see a big increase in folks trying to camp out in buildings throughout the district. So we're probably contacting 3 to 4 people a night that are trying to camp out in buildings. They're coming in through garages, open stairwells, etc. So working with buildings and security companies from the private property side on that. Hopefully with the new District 3 homeless outreach team, they'll be able to assist us in contacting some of these folks and getting them the help they need and hopefully clearing out some of those stairwells. On the physical environment side, you'll see some disruption to the neighborhood in a few little areas. We have to dig up some of the sidewalks to repair some underground electrical infrastructure that's broken. So we're probably going to be about 6 weeks out from that, but those projects shouldn't take more than a day or two at the most. So you might just be forcing people to the other side of the road for a day or two. After that, we met with the big meeting with developers and with Doty trying to time out some of the projects. So we are absolutely taking the tact with Doty, of course, and they're along safety first, pedestrian access second, and then vehicle access. So we are going to see some construction walkways throughout the district as we're going to have development on both sides of the streets. We want to make sure pedestrians keep good access. So we will have construction walkways on a lot of these projects that'll be upcoming, and we'll be breaking ground starting at the end of the second quarter and then into the third quarter of this year on most of our projects. Other than that, light change is coming. So we're probably about 5 weeks out from getting our parts for the LED conversion to the district. So we'll have a little brighter light out in the district. Those pedestrian poles will be about twice as bright as they are now, according to the readings we got in our test section. So we're excited for that. Holiday lights are down, and then we're just getting ready for spring. Got some beautification projects coming up to hopefully make the neighborhood look just attractive and great to walk through.
Can't wait to see the flowers. So
A lot more bulbs this year. We planted more bulbs last fall, so we're excited for those to pop.
well, they always do such a great job. Regarding the construction and the sidewalk closures, will there be information forthcoming on like maybe a schedule? Will that be on the Cherry Creek North website?
Probably won't be on the Cherry Creek North website. We do it through most of the construction in Cherry Creek on the city website. So any of the permits that are issued, we kind of hub through the city website for that information. Our impacts to the right of way will be really short. They're basically, we have to dig up concrete to get to electrical underground, repair it, and pour sidewalks back in. For the major projects, we definitely direct that over to the city website, which they have a really good list of all open permits in Cherry Creek North and what's closed from those permits.
Okay, all right. And I'm sure that if people have questions, we can reach out to you if they come to us with questions. And you guys are so good about keeping everybody informed in the neighborhood, and we really appreciate that. So thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody ever needs to call me, please use my cell phone. Best way to get a hold of me. I'm not at the desk a lot, so we'll be happy to help with anything we can.
Great, thank you so very much. I see Bethany just joined us, and I'm going to jump out of turn here because I didn't put this on the agenda, but I did want to remind everyone that the Alliance is hosting a runoff, assuming there's going to be a runoff for the mayor. That is going to be on May 3rd at Bromwell School. More details to follow, but just wanted to remind everybody, we did talk about that at the last meeting, but I wanted to remind everybody to keep that on your radar. And then we'll be working to make sure that we help get that information out to everybody in advance. We have plenty of time. So what I'd like to do now is turn to what I think is the biggest agenda item of the evening, which is collecting our thoughts. As many of you have seen, and we tried to distribute the Denver Moves Cherry Creek date for responses on their site, on their project site, had been moved out to the 27th. I believe that that attempted outreach is because a lot of people just did not get in and use those tools. But we wanted to take the time, I think, to bring together the thoughts that have been articulated and some privately, frankly. And as some of you saw, Barbara sent an email around, I think, to the majority of the members, but not necessarily all the folks that were on the copy distribution. So what I have tried to do, and I did run this by Stuart, as another member of the Denver Moves Cherry Creek team. Richard is also on that team, and together the three of us were trying to help as a sort of a subsection of Denver Moves Cherry Creek, as sort of a stakeholder representative group. And we, while we heard a lot of complaints, we really have not submitted something in writing by our steering committee as a committee. And so what I thought might be appropriate would be to work on a document that we could look at together here. I'm happy to send it out to everybody, but as a collection of the complaints and the problems that have been identified with that process. And while we're so excited to be a part of that process, the question is, what really is the process? Where are we going? Where are the funds that were a part of the sale of the parking garage and which were to be utilized for this process? where did they go? What do we have left? Where are we really going to end up in this very, very important process? So if you'll give me a moment to share my screen, I'm going to open a document that, can you all see this document now?
Not yet. Oh, now we can.
You can? Okay, good. Let me get up here to the top of this. So what I've intended to do to raise with this steering committee for our collective conversation, we have talked many times about the importance of having our unified voice. Many of you have been at the table, are working with or have worked with the Denver Moves Cherry Creek team. This is all about transit. It is a subsection, as you've heard, of Denver Moves Everyone, and yet we had some resources through the sale of the parking structure that were pledged to and to this process, whether that meant wayfinding or actual real impactful improvements in transit options in Cherry Creek. So I have tried to put together, well, I have put together this document that I'd like to walk through with you all to get a better understanding of whether this is comprehensive enough for our collective response to the Denver Moves team. I did run this by Stuart. Richard, I didn't have time, frankly, to get it over to you. I've been kind of catching up with myself, but you and I have spoken about this. You've been a part of that smaller group, and we've shared our mutual concerns about this.
I haven't seen it.
So,
Yeah.
can you see it, Alan?
I can see the first paragraph.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to walk through that right now. So what I'd like to do is just do that, and then we will come back to whether I have missed some of our comments, whether anybody believes that this is substantially off, how the members of the Cherry Creek Steering Committee are feeling about this very, very important process for our area. So this is addressed to the Denver Moves team. It will be shared, obviously, with our council people, people running for mayor, frankly, that we may want to ask about their thoughts about these issues as we move forward into the second election cycle, assuming there is one, and to really focus on where we go now. So with that, I'm just going to walk through. If you have a question or a comment, please, because I can't see you all, just say, hey, Lou, and then I will stop and we will take some comments on this. But I do want to just walk through this because I do want to meet this extended comment deadline to get something that is more of a unified collective response to what we have seen and heard to date. So this is intended to come from our steering committee to the Denver Moves team, respectfully submitted in addition to the comments made in various meetings, in the online project website, in various emails submitted by community members, including those that are on or involved with the Cherry Creek Steering Committee. The steering committee is the largest unified voice in the Denver Moves Cherry Creek study area, and the strength comes in presenting a united voice that reflects the overall reaction to the Denver Moves Cherry Creek study by those in the neighborhood and those involved in the future development of the Cherry Creek area in accordance with the Cherry Creek Area Plan and the current 2010 and the BID 2012 zoning. And I'm using the term collective zoning as we talk about this.
Lou?
Yes.
Lou, if
Yes.
you'll, I have a suggestion in the sentence where you say the Cherry Creek Area Plan in accordance with the Cherry Creek Area Plan. Perhaps you would add a comma there and say, and Blueprint Denver 2040, because Blueprint Denver 2040 has basically the Cherry Creek Area Plan embedded in it.
I think that's a really good, at this point, I'm just going to make a note of that. I do refer to Blueprint Denver. One of the things that that I think is important to distinguish is sometimes Blueprint Denver has it's so big that we lose the specific, but you are right. The area plan is embedded in it, but it is as it was written in the area plan. So, but I've made a note of that as well. And you'll see that Blueprint Denver is brought in another area. And of course, if you feel strongly, I'm happy to add it here. I think the most impactful portions of Blueprint are those that talk about the transit. So that may be well to refer to it here. But so the steering committee is also working with Cherry Creek West development and understands it will be a comprehensive zoning on that site that will include substantial density, proposed to be the 4 buildings up to 4-story, with some being smaller and some up to 13 to accommodate the inclusion of affordable housing. And you'll know Amy Cara, who I believe is on this meeting still, did present that to us. So we know that that is moving forward. I've referenced the excitement that Cherry Creek West brings to the Cherry Creek area, and his proposed connection to the actual Cherry Creek has been well received generally. But as of this writing, the details are very much in flux, and the Cherry Creek Steering Committee is yet to take any formal position other than to say that the process relating to Cherry Creek West must include the same elements relating to Denver Moves Cherry Creek. The development of Cherry Creek West and Denver Moves Cherry Creek simply cannot and should not be separated. Also, and by that, I don't mean that they can't move forward separately, but that the impact of one cannot be considered independently. So when we forward think what are our options in Denver Moves Cherry Creek, they must at least be comprehensively connected to what is going to be built on the Cherry Creek West site. And how that site ends up coming out of the ground, whether there will be a connection, whether there will be the internal roads. I think all of that is very much in flux. And we are not weighing in on that right now. The only thing we're weighing in on that project is that the elements of transit that affect all of Cherry Creek need to be considered as we consider Cherry Creek West and as we consider Denver Moves. Also, since the Cherry Creek area includes residential neighbors that want the character and walkability that define Cherry Creek as a neighborhood respected and protected. So to that end, here is my attempt to group what I have heard from many of you and also some of the written comments. This is my attempt to outline some of those concerns. The first is the boundaries. The Denver Moves Cherry Creek project area is much larger than our statistical boundaries of Cherry Creek. I think that came as a surprise to many people. We understand that the Denver Moves Cherry Creek Spear Leedsdale corridor as a high capacity bus rapid transit corridor that's listed in Blueprint Denver affects what we're doing. But do we really consider some of these areas north and south as being part of what we want to do in Denver Moves Cherry Creek? That said, the First Avenue really is where we're feeling the brunt. First Avenue that connects via Alameda to Colorado Boulevard, as well as First Avenue, and University as it connects to Cherry Creek Drive South. Those areas certainly are impacted. But for Cherry Creek and the development in Cherry Creek, First Avenue will continue to be the main thoroughfare which defines and is a part of Denver Moves Cherry Creek in many of the opinions of those from whom I have received comments. So the portion, and by the way, I footnote here, Barbara Metzger, who was on the Cherry Creek Moves team, lives in and has participated on and off over the years with Cherry Creek East. actually removed herself from the team based on some concerns. I've articulated those concerns at the end of this outline, because I think it's important to see that these concerns are not, were sufficient enough, I think, to have somebody who's been involved in transit for quite a while to actually withdraw from the process. So I did want to acknowledge her service to the Denver Moves team, and I think she's here tonight. She's participated on behalf of Cherry Creek East, and also just as a member of the area for years and years, and her thoughtful responses are greatly appreciated. So what we're looking at, the portion of First Avenue from University to at least Steele, maybe more, demands a transparent and comprehensive study that takes into account the numerous anticipated projects that could help knit together the north and south sides of First Avenue. Now is the perfect time to focus the developers, the mall, the bid, the existing neighbors on the vision for First Avenue as an inclusive and multimodal pedestrian-friendly street, albeit a busy one. Cherry Creek West has offered to give the Cherry Creek area a real pedestrian-friendly walkway and access to the creek. And Denver Moves Cherry Creek should be a part of the discussion on how to make that happen in the initial planning process. Denver Moves Cherry Creek should be focused on First Avenue and the major intersections through and including University and Colorado Boulevard and the major new development in this corridor. I will note that one of the busiest intersections in the city, and one that has a very high degree of EPA concern, is the First and University. So looking at these major intersections and the fact that often many of us driving that corridor, it'll take 2 or 3 lights to get actually through, is a concern. And if it's a concern now, forward think through the massive amount of projects coming in and out of the ground, not just on that corridor, but also on Colorado Boulevard and other adjacent areas. And to the extent that this is a main corridor, we need to think about how many lights you sit through before people just stop driving to our neighborhood and through our neighborhood. So that was point 1. Point 2, a lack of higher level visioning and traffic studies. Denver Moves Cherry Creek should be using all resources available in the transit community and the development community to work together to create a broader and higher level vision for Cherry Creek Transit. RTD, Dr. Cog, Dottie, and transit professionals for each of them and the development team should be working together and should be using their own funds as well as those from Denver Moves Cherry Creek to plan for the as-built future for the Cherry Creek area. Several times it has been suggested that there be a comprehensive area-wide traffic study using the full built-out potential for the area, considering current zoning. So when I say, again, current zoning, we've got our 2010, our 2012, we've got the basic concept plans for Cherry Creek West. So there's not a lot of new zoning. We can look at those and say, if we build out to that full potential, what are we looking at here? And that's what has been lacking, I think. We've talked about it here. You've heard about it in other conversations about Denver Moves Cherry Creek. It's like, where is the study that shows if this all builds out, what is the impact on those already overburdened areas? So I'll go back to this text.
Lou, my intuition tells me that a full build out is going to be so impactful on the ground transportation system that even with a bus rapid transit in place, because a bus rapid transit requires a straight corridor to be successful, and it will not have a straight corridor from Colorado Boulevard down to downtown. I think another alternative has to be in the mix. And that is, if the full build out occurs, the first subway in Denver has to be considered in this corridor. And I've said this numerous times. No one wants to listen, but I think it has to be there.
Thank you, Alan. And I know you know your stuff. It certainly should be a higher, I mean, that is a big higher level concept, but you know, we've also had
They have,
conversations.
they have a subway system in Kiev, okay? It's just, it's the same size as Denver.
So we've also had conversations, frankly, about if we put first under university, what does that look like? What are these big level possible options? So what I think this point is simply, it's not suggesting any of this, it's saying, get the people who understand some of those options. Are they real? Are they possible? Where would the funds come from? What would the time frame be? When is the time to do it? But what we do know is the higher level planning really needs to come now. And I think you heard that at the last meeting when several people spoke, including Stuart, on this particular point. So this is reciting that concern again in a way that would come from the steering committee. Let me go back to this text. There are already numerous projects in planning and breaking ground in the bid along the First Avenue corridor, many of which are already required to do a traffic study for their specific project. It has been reported that there are already 12 projects underway and more will follow in accordance with the current zoning. There are opportunities to work together on studies and community-wide strategies, including possible micro-transit system. I mean, now is the time, as these projects are coming out, to make the ask, to look at possible solutions, and that might be one of them. Another point that we would be making as a team here on the committee would be for the Denver Moves Cherry Creek process to account for where the funds were that were sort of committed to this process. So the text reads, the Denver Moves Cherry Creek process is not what Cherry Creek area residents and businesses expected for the use of the funds committed to Denver Moves Cherry Creek. The expectation was that the funds from the sale of the Clayton Lane Whole Foods parking garage structure would be put to use in figuring out better transit and parking options, infrastructure projects, development, traffic mitigation strategies specific to the major intersections in Cherry Creek, and that the Denver Moves project would focus on the statistical Cherry Creek area. Why not use the resources of the area involved, developers, and the Denver Move Cherry Creek to broaden the traffic studies required for the developments to take into account the inevitable density these projects will create collectively in the neighborhood and specifically around Hearst Avenue, Steele, and Alameda, Colorado. Only then can Denver Moves Cherry Creek consider real traffic reducing options available, some which are discussed below. Another point that has been made, several of you, maybe some of us older, have identified problems with the interactive mapping tools. So item 4 here is just to identify that the Denver Moves Cherry Creek outreach efforts have not been really very effective. The interactive maps and tools were not well received and were not well utilized. Accordingly, the outreach participation was limited and not focused. Real options for real-time projects should be presented to residents and businesses with input relative to those projects. Keeping residents up to date on what is being proposed is important, but the experts should be defining the options and then taking possible solutions to residents for input and educate them should be the goal. So I think many of you remember in the past, we've had different scenarios presented, for example, with respect to Steele in some of those intersections. I think what's happening here is the residents are being asked in these outreach tools to identify the problems. And yet the problems seem somewhat self-evident in terms of congestion. And so I think what we're asking is for expert, not residents, to help define those problems more clearly and to provide solutions that could be described, planned, identified, and promoted to residents for input. Next point is failure to integrate citywide and other transit tools and partners. As mentioned, Denver Moves Cherry Creek needs all key players, RTD, Dr. Cogdotti, and transit professionals such as Transportation Solutions to be at the table to discuss real solutions to transit issues in this important corridor. The Greenway Foundation, should also be involved, and city funding for parks should be considered to make Creekside Park more amenable to pedestrian-friendly access and use. As an aside, this especially comes in when we're talking about Cherry Creek West and the fact that it will abut to the Creekside Park. And so getting the park system and the Greenway Foundation involved now, when it's important to really do the planning and do the forward thinking, is what we're trying to identify here as something that would impact and benefit Denver Moves Cherry Creek. So back to the text. While developers can assist in providing funding for some of the solutions to transit issues in their projects that their projects will bring, city resources must be considered, and all transit resources available to and through the city should be tapped, as this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to get it right. Only with the right partners at the table will creative and comprehensive solutions and funding options be identified. Next point is the complete streets concept, which has not been discussed at all at this point in the Denver Moves Cherry Creek. The city finalized the complete streets guidelines in 2020, taking into account multimodal and pedestrian elements. Here is this link so you can take a look at what those guidelines are. Is it time to make that portion of First Avenue between University and Steele a more pedestrian-friendly street that accommodates cars, buses, multimodal elements? Can this be used to provide better connection to the Cherry Creek Trail? I mean, the trail goes all around the mall and connects to the country club. How do those people get into Cherry Creek? And the new development and the great restaurants and the shopping that people may wish to access, not by just riding the creek for exercise, but to ride it as a multimodal way of getting into the neighborhood to enjoy the amenities. Next point is equity and the lack of transportation options for workers. Cherry Creek is and will continue to be one of the city's largest areas for workers to thrive in a stable and reliable job environment. However, the lack of easy, accessible, and cost-effective transportation has made it harder for both employers and employees. A full analysis of the transit options and expansion thereof is key to the success of the area and of Denver Moves Cherry Creek. RTD in its current state of operations likely not able to fix the lack of reliable transit options. Perhaps Denver Moves Cherry Creek should consider creating locally controlled options, such as a microtransit service funded collectively by new developments, public funding, or a connector system, maybe like the one in Montbello, could be considered to solve immediate needs. Perhaps a local improvement district or similar option should be considered, as should a possible committed and free connector bus from downtown stations to bus stops on First Avenue from University of Colorado. All options for increased transit must take into account where workers live now and help workers have better options for getting to and from Cherry Creek. While future affordable housing may help in the future, there will not be enough, and workers' interests must be considered and represented on Denver Moves Cherry Creek. Next point, trip reduction options and parking. Denver Moved Cherry Creek has failed to consider and identify what options there could be to reduce car usage that may be associated with new developments and the increased density expected with the current zoning in Cherry Creek West. If bus rapid transit is an option, how would it be integrated into Cherry Creek and along First Avenue, where it is likely not going to have a restricted lanes in the core area? Other options need to be discussed on an area-wide basis, excuse me, such as finding ways to encourage or require employers, apartment managers, etc., to provide for eco passes or other systems available to help workers and residents get into and out of the neighborhood without a car. Stakeholders have pointed out that the bid and the mall provides a regional destination which cars will be a standard way for people to access the area. So cars need to be accommodated, and parking access and wayfinding are important elements to consider as a part of that process. But shoppers need to know that it is easy to drive into the shopping area and park easily. These shoppers will not all take BRT or other transit options, but reducing overall traffic congestion will make it easier for customers to come to the shopping district. Thus, overall trip reduction is important in the area, and while Denver Moves Cherry Creek has seemingly focused on small improvements that may reduce single occupant vehicle travel by 2 to 3%, what is needed is broader thinking that will shift 20 to 30% of trips away from single occupant vehicle trips. And parking options need to be reviewed, and perhaps a parking management district should be explored that would allow for variable rate parking opportunities. So those are my list, as I have heard from all of you and as I've gleaned from many meetings that I have attended on this topic. So the next steps in approach, the above concerns require a pause in the Denver Move Cherry Creek process to allow for a higher level vision to the Cherry Creek area transit options. The stakeholders deserve to understand what funding remains available for this process to continue in a different direction. The imminent change in city leadership will certainly have a bearing on how some of these issues will be addressed. A pause now will allow that leadership to weigh in on this important process and how Denver Moves Cherry Creek fits in with the entire Denver Moves Everyone plan, but respects the differences in Cherry Creek and what might work for Denver Moves Cherry Creek. A new visioning approach must result in specific ideas that can be presented to area stakeholders and which reflect the broader view of transit professionals and partners focused on currently planned and allowable development in the area and the increased density in adjacent areas, including along Colorado Boulevard. We can embrace growth and change when the anticipated problems with traffic and congestion are addressed upfront with real solutions. It is only with a broader view as to what these possible transit solutions, large and small, may be that the neighborhood stakeholders be able to continue to support the growth that is coming while retaining the remarkable and unique neighborhood character, which is Cherry Creek. That is my proposal to this group. I will close this document so we can have a discussion. I will stop sharing. To see what the what this group thinks about submission of this document to as a formal Cherry Creek Steering Committee statement to Denver Moves Cherry Creek in seeking this pause in that process to address some of these concerns. Any thoughts?
Lou,
I
I'll
would
just,
like to hear what Jeannie Robb has to say about that. She's got experience in this area. Jeannie, what is your initial response to this?
You're muted, Jeannie.
I turned in a little late, so I didn't hear the first part of Lou's list, but kudos to Lou. Lots of good points in that. And I think she ended on the right note. I was around for a lot of the increased entitlement on private property in the area, and the city just hasn't measured up in the public realm. And I think only with them coming to the foreground now can we really look at zoning north of excuse me, south of First Avenue. I'm also really concerned, Lou knows this, I love to get in the weeds, pardon any pun, but the steel medians that went in with the wastewater, those are horrible. I don't know why we'd trust the city to implement much as if that's the way it happens.
Thank you, Jeannie. I'd love to hear from Stuart and frankly, Michael Hughes, both of whom are transportation management gurus. Stuart, Michael, thoughts?
I'll let Michael go first.
I'm happy to. I just so you know, I sent a whole series of my own comments after the public meeting for Denver Moves Cherry Creek. And among them, that the plan itself isn't connected, as your comments suggest, to land use nearly tightly enough. And so I think there needs to be in the plan a whole discussion of origins and destinations and how best to serve those travelers wherever they are coming from. And Dottie needs to know where they're coming from. And what destinations they intend to reach, and then how best to make those connections make sense for the traveler. And that logic is simply not on display in the plan. The plan is more a series of lines, some of which begin, I don't know quite where. I can't quite figure out who it is that's supposed to use the starting point. And then an ending point that also doesn't seem to terminate in a place that's logical to me, because there's no description of what the destination is for people who are supposed to use that segment, that line on the map. And so I do think your last point is the right one, which is this needs more work. You need more time to engage. And the logic of these trips that they are attempting to serve, and then some logic about the method of service for those trips. It needs a much greater analysis and a greater description and a greater rationale.
Thank you, Michael. Stuart?
I spoke last meeting at length about my concerns. I just want to add one, and this might be just me being a planner and it drives me crazy. When you do studies like this, you look at each alternative and compare them. What alternatives they have, or they call their scenario development, they have the do nothing, which is normal. That's the baseline. And then they have high density development with enhanced transit. And then the third one is disseminated growth. So I sent the Dottie a question about, well, what if we all want to go with disseminated growth? How would you do that? And the answer is you can't.
Right.
Once the buildings are built, you don't go backwards. And there are entitlements and other issues. So my personal preference is for them to maybe look at, different scenarios. One is the no build, then let's do a second one, which is only use transportation demand management measures. Those are the eco passes and all the stuff that I deal with. The third one, BRT, to see how that compares. And fourth, maybe an infrastructure improvements. But, ultimately you're going to combine each together. But this is a great example of where I feel resources are being absolutely wasted. Because of their three options, all of us can immediately see only one makes any sense. So that's all I have to say.
Well, and of course, I've been working with the team, and Stuart is on that team, to try to understand some of these options better. We in Cherry Creek North have been working on some development agreements with developers already asking for trip mitigation considerations, including more real, bike storage options to encourage people to take their e-bikes to work, to encourage and maybe even mandate at some point eco passes. But eco passes are only as good as the system bringing people to the area. So that has to be improved. So, but forward thinking now, if you require them now, maybe we will actually get the next step, which is better bus service, better transit to our area, or other systems that could utilize benefits of an eco pass. Richard, I'd like to see if you had anything to add.
Yeah, no, I think, first of all, great job writing that out. We're in complete agreement. I mean, it is, I'm not gonna say sad's not the right word, but the fact that we're talking about, maybe a broken curb or some odd thing in these discussions, there's not a big vision to this study. And the main thing that just concerns us is nobody's looking at what build out's going to be and a real strategic vision of how we're going to handle transportation in this study. And that's a huge concern for us. So, I mean, all your points are great. They're valid. I think we've got some great people in this group that have really articulated themselves well. And we would absolutely support sending this out and maybe adding a few things. I got to think it through a little bit more. We're getting ready to craft just a direct email from the bid to the team. And we're going to do that along with supporting this.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not going to put you on the spot, Amy. I always appreciate you being here on behalf of Cherry Creek West. We certainly don't mean to put Cherry Creek West in any crosshairs of this at all. We just want to make sure that, as this clearly points out, that Cherry Creek West is assisted, frankly, in figuring out that development with accommodation of other developments in the area and what will work and what will not work, to be able to gain a vision of really knitting together the north side and the south side to provide real access to the creek and the parks that people were so positive about in your presentation to the neighborhood. But I'm going to give you an opportunity to say anything you'd like to say now.
No, I mean, I think it's great that you're doing a comprehensive response. I can tell you, the process is clunky, doesn't feel like it's working well. It's really hard for people to provide feedback. And as a few of you have said, if you're not a transportation expert, you're not even sure what exactly you're providing feedback on. So it's sort of it's a little bit of an odd thing. I do appreciate you making the comment that and I liked actually the way you said it in words better than the way you have it in your letter, but this idea that Denver Moves needs to consider Cherry Creek West and Cherry Creek West needs to consider Denver Moves. The two need to consider one another. I'm all for delaying that process. As much as I would love the flexibility to just wait for a new administration, we can't do that. But we do agree we need to be getting comments from the folks that are thinking about Denver Moves Cherry Creek when they are commenting on our plan, and not thoughts and ideas in a vacuum. So we're definitely aligned in that way. We're aligned in the way of trying to come up with ways to get cars off the streets and minimize trips, all those kinds of things. So I think it's great that you guys are doing this, and that it sounds like the bid is as well. It's really important that there be a larger voice, because when I went out on that website, there just weren't that many people commenting. And without that larger voice, I don't know that people are going to be heard.
Thanks, Amy. And I certainly did mean not to imply at all that your project should be stalled. You can't do that. I get it. We respect the investments that the developers make and the consideration that they have for neighborhood concerns. But the pause is on this particular process and making any conclusions based on what they put out to date. So getting Denver Moves Cherry Creek to refocus, get some of the professionals in, talk about those real issues, put something out there. Could we look at, frankly, getting rid of, Jeannie talked about the medians. There's not a worse median in Cherry Creek area than the one that goes right down First Avenue in front of Nordstrom. I mean, half of the trees are ratty. What if we've talked at length in prior years about redoing that so that you push the cars in the middle and you push landscaping further toward the sidewalk to have a two-tier of, I know that the developers want to put robust landscaping on the sidewalks adjacent to their project. But then if you had, if you will follow that link that I gave you for a complete streets, you can have a multimodal or another lane and then additional landscaping. In other words, take the median out from the middle and put more landscaping toward the sidewalks that will provide more buffers for more people that are enjoying the amenities on both the north and south sides of First. And my husband freaks out every time I say, oh, we got to take that tree down and put another one. He goes, it's a live tree. And I said, it's compost, honey. And then he gets excited. So, everything that is planted there that still looks good, we could do better. And we could do better in a way that respects the pedestrian and multimodals more than the car. And we can look at those options even in short bursts. I agree with you, Jeannie, on some of that new, it looks like they're doing an effort right now to add more landscaping to that new area along Steel. But couldn't we really do better, again, by honoring pedestrians more than cars? Let them live in the middle, let the pedestrians enjoy the areas closer to the sidewalk. Richard?
Yeah, just a little side note, we're working on an IGA with the city to take back over that median and the maintenance of it. We're not gonna look at investing a lot in it because we don't feel we can do that, but at least we can clean it up, get trash out of there, mow it and weed it, and the mall will partner with us in that effort. So we should hopefully clean it up a little bit this year, but we need to solve the bigger problem.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who've been around a long time, you'll recall that there was a 2016 agreement that expired. Not a 2016, 2006, 96. I'll have to remember exactly. It was old and it expired, I think in 16 is when it expired, that really talked about who took care of the medians. And now is the time to rethink. If we've got a problem taking care of them and they're that ratty, can we rethink it in something that is a better use of the space? And even though this is the Spear-Leetsdale is going to be a busy street, and it is the Spear-Leetsdale corridor, and it is going to be busy, how do we accommodate that in a way that we can make it more livable for the people that have to use it, walk across it, with all the great opportunities for people to live, work, in the area, they've got to get across from one side to the other. For those of us who want to take our bike down to the bike path or walk our dogs down there, you got to get back and forth. So, not only do we have to think about redoing the street in a way that makes more sense, but we definitely have to think about how to lessen the burden on the street with some of these traffic calming mitigation measures. And we've got experts here. I am not one. I am in a learning mode right now. But Stuart is one. He knows these teams. I know Amy through her work knows who to bring to the table. But I think what we're collectively saying is that maybe we don't have those voices in the table for this important project, which is Denver Moves Cherry Creek. So I think I'm just going to check the chat, see if there were any other. Bill says First Avenue has the potential to become a showplace for Denver. Thanks, Bill Tanner. Michael says, Lou, I want to add that your focus in the response on First Avenue is exactly right as well. It needs to get a significant part of the analysis visioning option attention in this Denver Moves Cherry Creek. Bill Tanner does point out that one concern about bus rapid transit is that those lanes, if they are limited, and only if they are limited to solely to bus rapid transit, is that those lanes replace cars and then the cars have to move over. I think there is a concept that bus rapid transit only lanes stop in areas that would be like this corridor from, say, First to Steele or First to Alameda even, to accommodate that specific concern. But thank you for bringing that up, because that is an important point when anybody is considering this. Alan, impressive and visionary. Parker, I-225 to downtown could be a full route for a subway. That's beyond Denver Moves Cherry Creek, and my focus right now is pretty specific to our neighborhood and what will continue the growth in our neighborhood in a way that is palatable and well thought out. Brooks asked if he could get a copy of this draft to review and make comments. What I would ask, because we're coming to the close of a comment period, is right now what I would ask is for a vote of those on the steering committee to give me a thumbs up. Use your down here. Use the button which is reactions to give me a thumbs up if you would like to submit this on behalf of the steering committee. If you're not a member of the steering committee, but have a comment, please send it to me by separate. But if you're in favor of putting this forth at this time, would you please let me know now by giving me a thumbs up one way or another? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe some people don't, 8. Let me look at the second page here. 9. Okay, and if anybody is, it looks like 10 total. If anybody is opposed to submitting this on behalf of the steering committee, if you could stop your reactions for and put a hand up or a thumb up for against, and let me know if anybody has a problem with this approach. I am not seeing that. Am I missing? If anybody, it looks like there are no, oh, Susan, are you?
I was just gonna mute myself, but maybe they're not registering. Should we just do a visual hands up or thumbs up?
Is there, well, the only thing I'm looking at, I think I got a pretty good number from those. I'm just not seeing anybody who is opposing this right now.
Okay.
And I have 24 left on this call. So yes, but that's fine, Susan. Does anybody oppose sending this out to the Denver Moves group right now? I'm not seeing any. So with that, I will assume that this, and we didn't do a formal motion because I had this on the agenda as something for consideration. So thoughts, comments being submitted as our unified voice will carry. I will send this out. I will also, immediately following this, the termination of this meeting, I will send this out to everyone. If you find something that you want to bring to my attention, please make your comments. And Brooks, you know, you can always just write in the margin and send me a PDF or whatever will work. Give me your comments. I will wait and do this tomorrow or Friday to get this in, but I would like to get it in by the 27th, which is the end of their extended comment period. So with that, that will be our plan. I thank you for the detailed focus on this. I know it's a lot, but I also know that this group is really high level and educated, concerned. You've been involved in this neighborhood for a long, long time. Jeannie, thank you for being here and for your thoughts. And we will move forward on this. And with that, it is a little after 6. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up for this particular meeting? Okay, with that, we will go ahead and adjourn a little early. It's cocktail hour, folks. So thank you again for being here and for all you do for our greater Cherry Creek area. Thanks.
Have a good night.
Good night.